It is a episode of the Last Minute Blues podcast, joined in studio by Alex Ferrario and Jeremy Rutherford. Gentlemen, it's wonderful to see you. I slept last night, so I feel as though that I'm going to be able to contribute to a conversation today,
Lucky.
as opposed to, I've said that
Wanna
again
keep bragging about it, Donnie?
and just rubbing it into Alex's face, whose kiddo is 6 weeks old?
3 weeks?
3 weeks
Oh, yeah,
old.
6 weeks. Yeah. Believe me, 6 weeks, I'd be getting better sleep right now.
I'm amazed, though, by you saying, like, 5 hours at a clip with a 3-week-old. I don't think any of my kids ever did that.
Yeah, I don't. Maybe we're doing this wrong. I don't know. But she's healthy, so that's all that matters.
That's awesome.
We have always, since we've had a kid, we followed this, like, schedule off of this book, Moms on Call. So any new parents or expecting parents out there, like, I highly recommend this book. It, like, lays out a schedule of, like, baby eats at this time, baby plays at this time, baby naps at this time, and you feed the baby this amount of milk at this time. And we just have stuck to it for all 3 kids. And by the 3rd week, we're doing it to where it's every 5 hours. Or in the evening, we're able to get 5 hours of sleep, and she sleeps until we give her another bottle. And I think it's by either 2-month-old or 3-month-old. You put her down at 7 o'clock, and she sleeps until about 6 a.m. the next morning.
Alex, buddy, you should be writing the book. And if you need help with that, I do know a writer.
That's true.
That can make some money off your experience
here.
here.
Legendary writer.
Dude, we are on, it's so crazy how we are all on, like, different ends of the family kid like spectrum or whatever, you know what I mean? So because I had my 2 kids started high school, or my daughter is a junior, my son is now a freshman. And did your daughter start high school?
I got a sophomore, and I have a 6th grade.
Look at you guys go. I have a Parents' Day Out daycare, a Parents' Day Out daycare, and a baby who still does not do anything other than she's in the cross-eyed stage. And let me tell you something, the cross-eyed stage is my favorite, because she just sits there and she'll stare and she'll be like, and it stresses me out, so I have to, like, close her eyelids and be like, hey, reset right now, because you're freaking me out.
And I've told you guys before, and now Alex is going through it, especially when he's got those late night games in Vancouver, and gosh.
Oh yeah, the second and third game of the season. Thanks, NHL.
But I used to go, like, on a, let's say, 4 or 5 game road trip, 10 days, you're gone, and we had, newborn at home, and I would come home completely wiped out. Like, you're going through airport security, you're in a different hotel every night, you have no idea, and then you come in the front door, and my wife Sarah just handed me, like, one of the little, here you go, and I'm like, whoa,
it's 2 parents with bags under
I didn't
their
go on
eyes.
vacation, I was working the whole time.
It's weird, though, too, because so our first baby that we had, Adelaide, she was born in the middle of hockey season. So, like, she was born in March. And so, like, we had her. I was a week off, a week from home, and then I was back into hockey straight through. And I was fine with it. Emma was born in July, and so I had, like, the 2 months to enjoy the time and kind of reset. This one doesn't feel as stressful because now the season, like, October, again, she was born in August. But it feels like I'm already prepared for, like, okay, baby will be in a routine by the time the hockey nights get here. The real problem, though, is since Katie and I work opposite schedules, it's what you and Sarah did, only it's when I'm not doing hockey, it's here's the baby, I'm going to work. And then when I have hockey, it's here's the baby, I'll see you tomorrow morning.
Man, that's so tough.
Donnie, you ought to volunteer to help him out.
Yeah, you in? You in, Donnie?
Well, but see, the thing about that is, though, and listen, you're going to think I'm crazy, but, like, I don't mind that for a few hours because I know I get to leave and hand the baby off to somebody else. we have so Mary's sister has, like, a 3-year-old, and then she has a best friend that's daughter's, like, 7 or 8. And so, like, every once in a while, they'll come over and spend the night, have a great time. We'll have, a little sleepover thing or whatever. And it's so much friggin' fun for, like, a day. So let's go to the park, and we'll do the ice cream, and we'll have pizza for dinner, and it'll all be fun. And then you get to go home.
Donnie's probably got the most soothing music that he just puts on in the room, and the baby just sleeps the whole time he's there. He's like, I got this record. These guys are European, and they're really soothing. And
Swedish rock band.
I try to be very, very conscious of what I play for the little kids. You know what I mean? Like, when my kids were small, I was never, like, inundating their eardrums with, like, punk rock. Was it Ben Harper and Radiohead and Pearl Jam and things like that? Sure. But, I wasn't throwing them a Bad Religion record when they were still formulating.
We've already listened to All the Small Things multiple times. I got my middle child that just headbangs in the back of the seat. Yeah!
Hey, speaking of which, before we start talking blues, Donnie's got the shirt on. Do you see this? Arkells.
Yep.
This is a great band. If you are listening to this podcast, you've never heard of Arkells, pull them up on your music and listen to them. Tell us what you think. I don't know. Can they send us messages?
Oh,
on
yeah,
YouTube
they can comment
channel
on
or anything?
YouTube. They can send us messages on there. We need to set up an email, too, so people can...
We got one.
Never mind. We have an email.
LMBP at 1057thepoint.com.
Oh,
Last
perfect.
Minute Blues Podcast at 1057thepoint.com.
Well, let us know what you think
There you
about this group Arkells. And the reason I bring them up is because I was writing a story about Ryan O'Reilly a couple years ago when he was with the Blues, and it was about how he just loves music, and he goes to these concerts. And I remember talking to his wife. I said, Dana, when a young 8 or 10-year-old hockey fan comes up to Ryan after the game to do like a meet and greet, you can see the kid just stumbling, bumbling, hard to get his words out, which we can all envision, right? We can all understand where the kid's coming from, meeting Ryan O'Reilly. But she said, Jeremy, Ryan is the exact same way when he meets these bands. Like, he'll go meet the band after the show, and he's like, "Ooh, yeah, Ryan O'Reilly." So I did a story on this, and I said, Ryan, who's, some of your favorite bands? And he mentioned Arkells. I went to the gym. I know you don't believe that, but I put Arkells on, and I haven't taken them off. They're great, Donnie.
New Music Friday from Jeremy Rutherford.
They're so fantastic. And also, too, they're amazing people. So it makes it that much easier to root for them. And it's one of those confounding things that I just don't quite understand, that when this band plays in Canada, they play to minimum, seriously, 20,000 people. I mean, it's a big friggin' deal. But then they come to the States, and it just does not, resonate the same way. The last 2 times I've seen them in St. Louis was at Delmar Hall and Blueberry Hill, and they were absolutely amazing shows, but they're also huge hockey fans. And I know that Max, the lead singer, is really tight with Kyle Dubas, and Max is a big Maple Leaf fan, so that all kind of worked out. And I haven't talked to Max since Kyle went to Pittsburgh or whatever. But man, if you're just looking for a really good band, and there was also a viral video that was going around a couple years ago, and I don't remember if it was Brady or Matthew Tkachuk, and they were at practice, and he was singing Leather Jacket while he was mic'd up, and then he was talking to a teammate about it, hey, do you know this band, blah, 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 which I just thought was, I mean, it was awesome. It would have been awesome if it was any hockey player, let alone a Tkachuk.
You know what's interesting about that? So you guys are just talking about this, and I just started to Google it. So if anybody plays video games, I don't know if you guys do, probably not. I play NHL video games.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, if they're a hockey band, they've got to have been featured in NHL video.
Yeah.
They've been featured 4 separate times in NHL video games, NHL 13, 17, 19, and 22.
Yeah.
So so I'm sure there's people listening to this right now saying oh yeah, I know exactly who Arkells are. I've heard their music. I didn't know that was Arkells, because it's oh yeah, I hear them all the time on video games.
Yeah, and not to change the subject too terribly much, which it's not, but I know that they announced this week that the cover of the new NHL video game will be the Hughes Boys, which I think is really a freaking cool-ass cover, and has got to be a thrilling thing for those kids.
Yeah, it's a cool-looking cover, too, all 3 boys on there. And I'm working on a story about Robert Thomas, and it's going to be out at The Athletic when the season starts, but he's friends with them, and it's so mind-blowing to me how some of these top stars in the NHL, like a Robert Thomas, he's been friends with them since 10, 11 years old. They played together in the youth teams and hung out together at the All-Star game this past year when they went to Toronto. So yeah, cool cover on that one. I want to say too, Alex, that thank you to Donnie. When I was writing that story about Ryan O'Reilly, I said, gosh, it'd be great to get a hold of Arkells. I get some comments from them about Ryan and his love for music. They met him and so on and so forth. And he said, oh, yeah, here's the manager here.
No big deal.
Call her. She's great. She'll set you up. And I think 24 hours later, all of a sudden, hi, this is Max, lead singer.
That's the trump card then for Donnie, the next athletic piece he doesn't read.
He asked me to pay for the subscription.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. Is that why you keep asking me to send you the article? You keep saying, hey, man, can you copy and paste it?
I'm just glad that one thing has remained consistent over the course of the time of this podcast. No matter if it's you guys, no matter if it's Jeff or Jamie, I'm just glad that you guys can have a great time in giving me crap. I'm just so unbelievably thrilled that has been the backbone of this podcast.
Hey, man.
If you could just see our text thread, Alex, from the night before I come in here.
It's dangerous. It's dangerous if people would see that text thread.
All right, so, I mean, it's a really, man, as a Blues fan, it's a really positive week. The offer sheets are not picked up by Edmonton. The Blues now have a great young defenseman in Philip Broberg, as well as Holloway.
Dylan Holloway.
Dylan Holloway.
Yeah.
And so I have some questions about both of these guys, but I want to start with Doug Armstrong saying will offer a player on his mom's team an offer sheet if it will make the Blues better. This is, man, I mean, we have had our issues with Doug Armstrong here and there over the course of the last couple years. We always do. In that position, there's always things that you can be critical of. But, guys, this is, this really seems to be a top-notch Doug Armstrong fantastic gold star move.
Yeah, before we get into Broberg and Holloway, I got to say this. So when the news broke about the offer sheets and you're just trying to analyze it and how it came to be, and, Stan Bowman is the GM on the receiving end in Edmonton, and you think, okay, Ken Holland was the GM. He's great friends with Doug Armstrong. Everybody I talked to, they said, he wouldn't do this to Ken Holland, and I agreed. I was like, yeah, I couldn't see that. Like,
be an awkward 18 holes to play next time you stole two players and screwed the team over.
So the cursor's blinking on my laptop that day that I was writing the story, and I'm thinking, and it's hard to envision that Doug Armstrong would have done this to Ken Holland, and I don't think, obviously, it was being talked about everywhere.
Oh, but he was addressing it to
you.
Well,
no, I don't know. I don't know. But Elliot Friedman, I think, also had it in his piece, like, would he have done this to Ken Holland or whatever? So it was out there other places. But when you're listening to the Zoom call with Doug Armstrong and he goes, oh, and it was reported, I'm at home and I go, here we go.
JR puts it, you got to raise your hand in the Zoom. JR clicks the unraise your hand button and be like, no.
Here we go. So then he just nails the line, right? I do this to my mom's team.
Right.
I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Like probably the listeners are too young for Mary Lou Retton, but he got a 10. Mary Lou Retton, he did the pole vault, the backflip, and just nailed the landing. To the point where I got to admit, guys, sometimes you exchanged the text message with Doug Armstrong, and I couldn't. I sent him a text that day that said, hey, nice one-liners today at the press conference. He sends back LOL.
Meanwhile, he's in Margaritaville going back out to the beach after he does his press conference on Zoom. I'll tell you the one that stuck out to me, the liner from Doug, and I tweeted it out because, of course, I'm an office nerd, when he said, this isn't personal, it's business. The first thing that came to mind as I'm sitting on that Zoom is the Michael Scott quote where he's like, business is always personal. It's the most personal thing in the world. What are you talking about, Doug? Of course this is personal.
Do you think, does this at all signify to you guys that maybe this offer sheet thing is going to become more commonplace in the NHL, or do you still think that this is just going to be a once in a blue moon?
I hope it becomes a big thing. I mean, that's why, like, of course, on the Blues side of it, it's like you're hoping that they both go through for your team's sake to get two really good players. But as this whole week was going on, I, as a hockey fan, was just sitting there going, man, I hope these are successful so other teams that are sitting at home look at that and say, why don't we do this? Mm-hmm. Because for the longest time, it's felt like it has been taboo of, well, we can't offer sheet this guy because, well, they'll probably match it. And if they match it, they're going to get angry. And then they're going to come after us with an RFA status. And that's why I loved what Doug basically said in the press conference. He was challenging other GMs, like, go ahead and match, try and give these guys an offer sheet. We'll match them. Because you have to be fiscally smart when you put your team together. So that's why I hope there are other teams that look at what Doug just said and say, okay, now we just need to target another team that has bad cap situations as the cap continues to rise and go after these players. Because how exciting was this, not just for Blues fans, but for hockey fans in the middle of August? Maybe not so much JR, who was probably at the lake, like in his onesie, that he was getting ready to jump in.
Nosy.
He's like, yeah, nosy. There we go. That's what I like to hear. Getting ready to jump into the water, and he's like, oh, come on. But, like, hockey was actually alive for an entire week, waiting to find out what took place. Then Edmonton's making moves, other teams are making moves, and then the Blues get two offer sheets. I hope this becomes a thing.
Donnie, you know why he liked it? Let's cut through all the crap here. He has a 3-hour radio show each day, and they need something to talk about.
And I'm so sick of talking about the Cardinals.
What are they going to do with these offer sheets? But hey, let's talk about these players. People are asking questions this week, who don't know much about Broberg and Holloway, and I don't want to pretend to act like I've watched video clips for years on these guys, but it's a situation where Broberg's 23. Defensemen don't come into their own, until a few years in the league. He's only played 80-something games. Yeah. And he's 6'4", 212. People compare his skating, like you had the guest, Mark Spector, the guest that told you he's, Jay Bomeister-esque when it turns to skating out of trouble. I mean, this is exactly what the Blues need. And so we can't sit here and promise that this is going to turn out and there's going to be a statue next to Hall and Fedorko out there of Philip Broberg, but it's a situation where he can really, really help. And then Holloway, too. If you want to get back to that forechecking, physical, can skate. Doug Armstrong's trying to make the team faster. I mean, Holloway's the poster boy. I mean, that's what he does.
All right, so I have a couple of questions, and just in reading, the things in which that I read, which I assume hockey-wise, we probably all run into the same kind of articles and things that we read. But one of the things that was brought up, or at least it kind of sort of seems to me, of the two, does Dylan Holloway have a bigger upside than Broberg? Because it seems as though in a lot of the articles, people were really almost sort of excited about the prospect of Holloway with the Blues as much as Broberg. And then as kind of a beat to that, the one thing that I read that was brought up about Broberg quite often is it seems as though people are saying that the Blues paid him too much for being an inexperienced player. But then everything that I have heard about Broberg in the playoffs was that he was the man when he was allowed to play. So can you guys kind of speak on those things, on Holloway and on Broberg?
I'll start with the contract for Broberg because everybody is right. The Blues did overpay for Broberg, but that was the only way they were acquiring Broberg.
Even Doug would say that.
Yeah, that's the only way they were getting Broberg was to pay him $3 more million. Their agent or his agent Darren Ferris said that. The offer on the table from Edmonton was what, $1.5 million. That's you were going to have to pay that player an offer sheet because the trade value was too high from what Edmonton was asking. So yeah, you overpaid for him, but I mean, I think the upside is he wasn't misused in the sense of he was a bad player and they just didn't use him. He was misused in the sense that the head coach Jay Woodcroft loved to play 11 forwards and 7 defensemen, and Broberg was the 7th defenseman. And 7th defenseman, we've seen at times, you might get 6 minutes in a hockey game if things don't go well, and then you're healthy scratch an awful lot. Think about that. He's at the NHL level with the Edmonton Oilers, and you're not playing consistently, and then you sit in the press box for 2 weeks straight, and then you get sent down to the American Hockey League, and you go play 30 minutes. Go look at his AHL stats. There's no, deep dive into him. Playing 30 minutes a night. He was playing in every situation. He ended those seasons as a positive in the plus-minus, and he picked up points. And then it got to the NHL, and he wasn't really doing it. But it's hard to do that when you're a third-pair defenseman.
Right.
Jamie talks about that all the time, to where guys come through the system as one type of player, and then teams try and mold that player into something else. Edmonton was trying to mold him into a shutdown right-handed defenseman. He's a left-handed defenseman who we've heard multiple times say his expertise is his skating and his ability to get out of his own zone and create offense. So why not play him in that role? They did that in the Western Conference Final and Stanley Cup Final, and he thrived. He finished it, 7 games as a +8?
Wow.
Or 11 games as a +8. That's impressive for a guy who was playing 18 minutes a night. I'm, super hyped about Broberg, as you can tell. I think the upside for Holloway is a top 6 forward, probably second line, third line. I think the upside for Broberg is a top pair defenseman.
Yeah, he could be. And one quick thing on the contract situation. Hopefully I can Mary Lou Retton deliver this.
10 out of 10, baby.
10 out of 10. Here comes it. Okay, so, hey, seriously, give me a score at the end of this.
All right,
here we go. Okay,
starting at a 2.
So in 6 years, you're either going to be able to say, gosh, they really overpaid for him and he didn't work out. He just wasn't that type of player. Or you're going to say, oh my gosh, I can't believe 6 years ago we only had to pay $4.5 million to get this guy. Now he's part of the core of our team. He's a top pair defenseman, and he's one of the top 10 defensemen in the league, and we were able to get him for $4.5 million. Here's the thing. If you sat down right now and said, I want to get a defenseman who's 6'4", 212 pounds, who's only 23 years old. How are you getting him? You can't do it. You can't do it. You're not making a trade for him. Edmonton's probably not trading for him. If there is one out there, you have to massively overpay, whether it be assets, trade, money, so on and so forth. The only way to do it is this. And if you want Edmonton to not match, you have to offer that level of pay. If you don't, then they're matching. So that's the thing.
10 out of 10.
10.
I mean, I wasn't going to go 10 out of 10.
Whoa.
Let's say 9 out of 10. I mean, it was really good.
Super convincing.
Did you see the hand motions, though?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
YouTube saw it. He was getting into it.
I mean, the hand motions, helped. But, I mean, still, also, I think if we're going to give a 10 out of 10, we got to save that for,
Yeah, I agree with Donnie. I think my ankle kind of bent there at the end.
It's that exercise that you're trying to do, man. You're working up the core. I like it. Can I say one more thing on this?
Yeah.
Defenseman-wise. So you're paying, $4.3 million for him this year and next year? Think of it this way, because everybody wanted Jacob Chychrun before this, right?
Yeah.
Jacob Chychrun.
Including me.
Yeah, 26 years old, was a former first-round draft pick that was 16th overall, so lower than Philip Broberg. Yes, he's played over 400 games in the NHL, But to get that player who's only one more year at $4.6 million, then you're probably paying him $7.5. You would have had to trade a third-round draft pick and a NHL-ready player. They traded away Nick Jensen from the Washington Capitals, who was already playing for them. So that's a guy who's played at over 400 games, and I think there were a lot of people that were skeptics about Jacob Chychrun if he was even a top-pair defenseman. And you're paying him $4.6 for 1 year.
And he's going to be 30 when you're ready to compete again. This guy's going to be 25.
Exactly. And you would have had to pay this guy $7 million, $7.5 million for what the going rate of defenseman is right now in the NHL. Next year, like Jared just mentioned, when you weren't ready to compete, you'll probably have to play Broberg, depending on what his growth looks like, somewhere between $5 and $6 mil in 2 years when you're closer to competing and when he's 25 years old. You don't get these defensemen for a second-round draft pick ever in the NHL.
All right, so this week, I think it was yesterday, as a matter of fact, the Blues single-game tickets went on sale. Now, one, that's a nice, easy way for me to plug the fact that single-game tickets are on sale now. But also, two, I was curious about this last night when I was thinking about the podcast today. Do you believe that this last week or so of offer sheet madness, we'll call it, do you think that helped sell tickets? Do you think that there were people that maybe might have been on the fence that went, you know what, this is awesome, I want to be a part of this. I don't know if they're still going to be good or not, but I mean, at least they're putting some pieces together. Yeah. What do you guys think?
Well, tickets were supposed to go on sale 3 weeks ago, and they delayed it. No, I'm joking.
Now it
Completely
makes sense. I'll give you an
conspiracy theory.
I'll give you a perfect example. My dad, who's been a longtime hockey fan, he broke away from his season tickets a couple of years ago, just financial purposes. He texted me once the Broberg thing happened. He was like, "So I'm buying tickets this year." He's like, "I'm getting a 15-game pack." He's like, "Do you want me to get any extra ones?" And that's my dad. Like, and he's a big hockey fan. So, like, I would imagine that there are Blues fans that were on the fence about this team of like, yeah, we'll see if they're good before we worry about it. There's a little hype that goes into it. I have to imagine of like, I'm going to have to make sure I get to a game.
So basically, Alex just told you that he has no pull to get tickets down there because his dad has to buy season tickets.
Well, and if I do, I'm not going to tell my dad that. Come on, man. You got to fight through this like I do.
See, listen, my thing isn't tickets. I actually printed this out, and I was going to totally make it. Hello, Blues. Hi, my name is Donnie Fandango. I'm a big fan. I do middays on 105.7 The Point. I do afternoons on 106.5 The Arch. Also co-host of the Last Minute Blues podcast.
Fills in on 101 ESPN. Probably does some Keishi work as well. I've probably seen him at WIL at some point.
Is there any way that I could get on the list for the promotional giveaways?
Which one do you want the most? The cowboy hat, right?
Well, not the cowboy hat, but I would wear it for a picture. That said, I want this retro basketball jersey for when I walk, all right? Because I've been cutting sleeves off T-shirts to walk here lately. And then also, too, this 75th anniversary Snoopy bobblehead. I know no kids care about the Peanuts anymore, but I friggin' love Snoopy. Feel like Charlie Brown's a little bit.
Here. You're walking with no shirt on the
Yeah. Look at those. Show those off to YouTube.
Oh, man.
Oh, no. Oh, you know what's also really gross? So I have definitely lost weight. Two things are disgusting. One, my thighs. I am definitely going to have to do some more toning because we got some loose skin. Also, my shorts and stuff are fitting way looser now, which is great, except I am throwing ass crack around almost every time that I bend over.
No, that's great.
We're really going to have to.
I actually do need a plumber at my house, so if you're free.
No, the pipes look. You see the weed eat the arms a little bit, but the
weed eat the arms. Oh shoot. Oh, that's great.
I just never think about to impress anybody, so I don't really care about those sorts of things, but I should.
Once you're married and you have kids, you don't need to impress.
You just stop. All right, so guys, so the real brass tacks of this all. All right, so you get Broberg, you get Holloway, you made some moves over the offseason. Maybe nothing that was like essentially like super sexy until the offer sheet thing, but this team is definitely, at least on paper, better than the team last year. We've talked about it since free agency a couple of times. The Central is absolutely better. The West is absolutely better. So I just want to know kind of you guys' expectations on this team going into the year with the addition of Broberg and Holloway. What do you guys think? Does this... I think a lot of us thought that this would be another year where, maybe a fringe playoff team. Does it change your thought on that at all?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't change my thought on them being a fringe playoff team. I think there's a chance they could miss the playoffs. I think there's a chance they could be into the playoffs. I don't think there's any question that they're better than what they were last year. Like, just go through it. We talked about this on our show yesterday. The bottom six last year, it was Kevin Hayes, it was Kasperi Kapanen, it was Alexei Toropchenko, it was Nathan Walker, There were two other guys that I forget who it was. But regardless, that group of players scored 15 less goals than if you add in the 4 players that the Blues have gotten that will play in their bottom 6 this year. So Texier, Foxa, Dylan Holloway, and Matthew Joseph. Those 4 guys add 14 more goals in the same amount of games played than what the other bottom 6 did last year. So, like, you're deeper in that front. Your defense is better. I mean, I don't know how anybody would say it's not better. You've got Ryan Suter, who's a veteran. You've got Philip Broberg. You take out Scott Perunovich, who just didn't really show that top 4 potential. Torrey Krug, who struggled an awful lot last year. And then they were working with Tyler Tucker and Marco Scandella in your top 6. So now you've got Suter, Broberg, and Leddy on the left side with Kessel, Falk, and Parayko on the right side. To me, you were a minus 12 goal differential last year. If Binnington and Hofer stay the same greatness, which I expect, your defense improves. I think you're talking about being a team in a positive goal differential, which means you're at least, 4 points, 6 points better than what you were last year. Again, I don't know if you're a playoff team because the West got better in certain areas. Some teams didn't. I don't buy into saying the West is as dominant as they've been in the past. I think you're probably a 95, 96 point team. And is that a playoff team? Could be. Just depends on what everyone else around you looks like.
Yeah, I agree with Alex. There's no denying that this bottom 6 forward group is better. I mean, leaps and bounds better. The depth and the ability that these guys that they brought in have. To me, it's that top 6. Like, they have to play like they're being paid and that they're a top 6 in the NHL. I mean, Robert Thomas had a great year. Kyrou finished strong. He's got to be consistent. And Pavel Buchnevich, let's face it, he wasn't consistent like he can be. So, he's got the new deal. He comes in. Who's the rest of that top 6? Is it Braden Shen? Is it Brandon Saad? That top 6, they have to be able to contribute because you're going to get a better performance from that bottom 6. And then the other thing is the special teams have to be
absolutely
good most of the year. Like last year, it's great when you finish the season, 28% on the power play for the last however many games, but you can't be 8% the first half of the game and kind of bury yourself. So to me, if they can get some great years out of these top 6 forwards, I feel confident about the bottoms 6 in that forward group. And then with the defense, I think it's going to be a better group. And then the goaltending, if it's up to snuff like it was last year, I mean, that was a great tandem. I think then you talk about special teams, and now you got a team that could make the playoffs.
The one thing that I've just kind of, because I'm a nerd and jotted all down now, I think best case scenario for this team is Dvorsky makes it out of camp, plays into a third-line centerman role. I do not want them playing Pavel Buchnevich as a centerman, and I have a feeling they're going to. I think that's bad for the team because I think he's got 40-goal potential, and when you put him in the center, that takes it away. I think Shen should be your centerman, and I think Dylan Holloway should get a shot at your top 6. And then I think from there, you're putting a Brandon Saad who's a consistent 20-goal scorer on a third line. You're using a Dvorsky. You're pushing a guy like Toropchenko who showed 15-goal potential to a fourth-line role. And then you're putting a guy like a Nathan Walker who was good for you last year. He's an extra player for you. What I don't want to see is them slow play it. If Dvorsky is up to snuff to play, of him starting in the AHL and then going with Booch as a centerman and putting Chen on the wing, I think that's what you did last year. And to JR's point about the power play, that's the part that I'm still most concerned by because you did not change your power play. Your power play is the exact same. You've actually gotten a little worse because you don't have a power play quarterback.
Right, because you don't have Torrey Krug anymore. I want to talk about Krug here, guys. And not just us, but I mean, it just seems to there just seems to be this overriding idea that we are not going to see Torrey Krug anytime soon. Would you guys be absolutely blown away if at training camp the Blues say he's going to only be out for another month or so? And then let's just say hypothetically that he does play this year.
Can he play this year?
Where?
They don't have the cap space.
Yeah, no, they're definitely up against the cap, and it speaks to everything they've done. Speaks to him not being available.
Well, right, that's what I thought.
No, yeah,
but,
yeah. So
you know,
I guess
it's a
my
good question,
point is,
though.
I would be surprised if I saw him in camp or first month. Yeah, like it's trending. It looks like, and this is based on nobody's telling me this.
It's
this
just
is
the moves.
The moves.
Yeah.
That he's not going to be ready, and you're talking 10 defensemen on one-way contracts. That includes Torrey Krug.
And 7 of those 10 are left-handed defensemen. You
left
only
shot.
have 3 right-handed defensemen.
So to me, I would be surprised for sure. The bigger question is what's going to happen when he is ready to return, even if it's next year, because he's still going to have 2 years
2
left on the
years.
deal, and he's got a 15-team
it
no
shows him
trade.
modified.
It's going to go from a full no trade to a 15-team next year. So, you could almost legitimately ask the question: even though he could just miss this one season and still have 2 years left on his contract, has he played his last game with the Blues? Like, that's a legit question, because if they move in this direction and he's out all year and Broberg becomes the player that they think he is, and let's say Perunovich has a decent season too, like, they're ready to move on at that point.
Absolutely. And so one of the things that I remember during last year is I remember that there were times where I'm watching the games and I feel as though that the Blues are just getting their asses handed to them physically. And, there would just be times where I'd be like, God dang it, we just don't have an answer physically or physicality-wise outside of when Braden Shen decides to drop the gloves. It seems as though with the way that the defense has kind of been reconstructed a little bit, this definitely seems like a bigger defensive core and maybe a little bit of a meaner defensive group as well. Would you agree or disagree with that?
I don't know if it's meaner. I mean, I think I don't know how mean Broberg plays. Like, I've heard that he's not afraid to get physical if he needs to, but he uses his legs more. And, I mean, if it is Jay Bouwmeester-esque, remember, Bouwmeester's not cross-checking anybody in the back. Nick Leddy's the exact same player. I don't think you're getting any physicality there. I think Kessel brought a little physicality last year. Falk brings it every once in a while. Parayko brings it. I think the guy that's bringing it more than anybody is Suter. But you got to also remember he's 40 years old.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
How physical can you be? So, that's the real question. But we had Matt DeFranks on who watched him in Dallas when he first got there, and that was, 3 years ago? And he said, yeah, he'll throw cross-checks if he has to, and he's got, the veteran
slash everything.
Yeah, the ability to, get away with some moves that other guys wouldn't. So I think he brings you more nastiness, but you're replacing that from what a Marco Scandella was last year. Marco Scandella played pretty physically, so did Torrey Krug. I think the real question is just going to be the physicality up front. That, to me, was the bigger problem for the Blues last year. They had no ability to sustain offensive zone time. Mm-hmm. There was no cycling of the puck. The puck went in, it got taken away from the other team, and it went back out. And that's why there was no offense. And now, to me, if you formulate the lines in a way to where every line has that guy who can retrieve pucks, I think Holloway adds to that. I think Dvorsky can be one of those guys. Faksa and Matthew Joseph are those guys. So, you've got a lot more guys now. Last year, we were relying on Toropchenko and Nathan Walker to start forechecks for this team.
Sure.
Because nobody else was going to do it. Now I think you've got 4 or 5 guys in your top 9 that might be able to create more offensive chances. If anything, they're going to set the top line up to capitalize on a worn-down team if they can keep plays alive.
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, Joseph, Holloway, Faksa, even though he's not very quick, he can, he's a big body and he can bang. So yeah, definitely there's some more size up there. There's the potential for it. Let's wait till November before we maybe evaluate what it looks like, but there's the potential for more of that.
I think more than anything else, I thought of Suter and Kessel just making other teams' worlds terrible, and I loved every part of it. Wow, I bet you those dudes are horrible to play against, and I'm glad that we have them.
That's honestly, as much as I'm excited to see Broberg, because my hope is, I've been clamoring for a pairing mate for Parayko since Bouwmeester had to retire. You need that for this team to get out of a retool. I hope Broberg will be that by next year. I'm really excited to see Kessel and Suter play together because, it's been a while since the Blues have had a legit, hey, if we need somebody, we could go out there and just shut the other team down for 6 minutes. Those guys could do it. In the past, it's been okay, Tucker and Mikkola or Scandella and Kessel. Now you are legit asking for a dude who's made it 40 years in the NHL, or he's 40 years old in the NHL, and you got a guy who showed his nastiness last year and his physicality.
Don't mention Mikkola. That email's going to light up. Why'd you let him go?
Are we big in Finn? Oh, I thought you meant, is he going to message me? I was like, wait, are we big in the Finn market? I know we're big in the Russian market.
No, during that Stanley Cup run, I got about 100 texts.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense.
We also, and we have a shout out. We have an English listener. We do, and I should have brought the damn email from the last time that we got together, but he religiously listens to the podcast. I believe he's just in London, and
nice.
Just want to say hello. So this podcast is worldwide, just to know.
Wow. We know it is because it's gone to Russia multiple times.
Good thing Donnie got his name. It was nice to give him a shout-out with the name.
Hey, no kidding.
Hey, that English listener, we appreciate you over in London.
Thanks for listening, stranger.
Sorry, guy. All right, so one thing here real quick that I just was thinking about with, lines. So obviously with the additions that the Blues have made, great, wonderful, fantastic, but we still need to see some growth from our own guys. We need to continue to see Robert Thomas on his track to being one of the best players in the league, even though he had an amazing season. And boys, can we talk about this year as far as Jordan Kyrou's career goes, and Jordan Kyrou specifically in St. Louis?
Yeah, To me, it's gotten to the point now where it feels like it's been, this is who Jordan Kyrou is, and we need to surround him with other guys. Kind of like what Vladimir Tarasenko was. Like, Vladimir Tarasenko was always a guy that was viewed as, yeah, you know, he's going to be a goal scorer for you, but there are going to be some
lapses.
Yeah, there's going to be some areas of his game that frustrate you. But what did they do? They surrounded Vladimir Tarasenko with a ton of dudes who did so much so that you didn't worry about those lapses. He was just one piece of the puzzle. And that's what it feels like they're doing now. You've brought in a Holloway, you've got Neighbors, you've got Thomas, you've got Buchnevich locked up right now. Like, now it doesn't feel like you're relying on Jordan Kyrou to be the star of the team. He just needs to be one of the pieces of the team. And I don't think that's a bad thing. It's just, how do all these other guys develop? And that's, I think Kyrou can be the player that Blues fans want him to be. But it's what JR said earlier. You're going to have it starting in October, and it's going to have to go till April. You can't have it in October, disappears until January, shows up in February, and then March and April, when you're out of a playoff spot, it shows up. That's what happened last year, and that's where I feel like the frustration really came from Kyrou. You can't deny how good he got defensively last year. He got better defensively last year, but the offense lacked. Now you got to try and mesh both of them.
Guys, whenever we finish up a podcast, I know that when we produce it and put it out on Twitter this afternoon, we're always looking for a headline, right? Well, can I give you a headline?
Oh, man.
Right,
is this going to be another one of those 10 out of 10?
Jordan Kyrou is going to be consistent.
Give it like a 7.5.
I mean, I'm optimistic about that. I don't know what to.
I was hoping for one of those like where words rhyme.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I don't say the
Jordan
actual
Kyrou is going to be Kyrou.
Dude, if we make this the title of the podcast, people will not even listen. They will scoff and then just move on. Like,
well, you could come up. Hey, I've never been a headline writer. You come up with something. I just write.
Come on,
the
he writes the meat and bones, Donnie. It's not just the headline. Is that why you're not reading his pieces?
No wonder he doesn't read it. Yeah,
you need to get a better headline guy.
But no, like, listen. I think you guys don't play this. In
we're going
February.
to. This will be on the first pregame show that Alex Ferrario hosts.
Don't play this in February. But no, like, gosh, you just think that he can figure it out and realize that it's got to be there every night, or at least most nights, and this team is counting on what he brings, right? And so let's just say he's playing with Thomas. Like, Thomas, to me, is a top 10 center in the league now, and I think that the Blues have to take advantage of that. You have to get the most out of the wingers who are playing with Robert Thomas. And I think that there's been a couple seasons. Last year, sometimes they blend together, Alex, but Kyrou was a little bit snake-bitten earlier in the year. Was that last year?
Oh, yeah, last year he had like 5 breakaways in the first month, and he didn't score on any of them.
Yeah, and so a few of those go in. So anyway, I'm not trying to make excuses for Jordan Kyrou. I just think that the talent is there, and as soon as it clicks, he can be that guy. So I'll try to come up with some words that rhyme. And what do we got here?
I'll give you one sooner or later. The oven's not baked yet, you know? I just preheated it.
Guys, I got to tell you, and I know that this is me in this podcast. The other role that I play is the ever optimist with this Blues team. I know that there's a lot of ifs, and I understand
there's the headline.
how that works. But, man, like, it feels as though this could be a team that maybe some folks sleep on, and they can make some racket. I think it might take a little bit for them to kind of formulate it and get it all together, but I really feel like this could be a team that makes some noise.
That is the one thing that I will warn people, that I have to warn myself about, to not get too excited. Remember 2019 when you brought in, 4 different faces, and you were like, hey, this team's going to be, like everybody was saying, Western Conference champions. And remember, it took until January, and I, to this day, remember Panger talking about it. There were so many guys that had different egos about themselves that it took up until January to get on the same page and play as a team, and they had to fire a coach to get there. So, like, all I'm saying is you are bringing in 5 new faces to your forward group, and you're bringing in 2 new faces on your defensive core, and you've got a new assistant coach and a head coach that's permanently there. I do think there will be some growing pains this season of like, hey, we need to get on the same page. I think it's good that Bannister's got the entire camp with these guys. I think it's great that Julian's here to have a head coach expertise. And I think it's good that it does kind of feel like a lot of guys that are rejects, for lack of a better word. Like Matthew Joseph has been in the trade news to get shipped out forever. Foxo was getting healthy scratched at times. Texier was playing the 4th line. Holloway gets the offer sheet.
Vrana, Cabin. Oh, sorry.
Hey, Vrana.
Oh, come on.
Vrana is...
That's a low blow, JR.
Man, now you go from headlines to low blows. What are you trying to accomplish here?
I just never want to hear the name Jacob Vrana again.
It's Yakub.
Yakub.
It's Yakub.
Just, whatever, man. have a good career. Just not here.
All I'm saying is you're going to have a lot of different faces that play a lot of different styles from a lot of different teams. There will be some growing pains that come into it, but I do think you've got the depth now to be a lot more dangerous than years past.
Blues fans, you can bet Kyrou will put the puck in the net.
I don't know.
It sounded like
I think we got to work on
it sounded like a Miss Rachel like YouTube video. Now do it this way. Bet net. Watch a lot of Miss Rachel, guys.
All right,
Sorry.
so a couple things here. When do you guys think that we're going to get together again? Probably right around time training camp starts?
Depends on if you want to see us again or not.
Or you let me come back.
The headline, I don't know, man.
We could do. I'm just saying, whenever we get back together, whenever that is, we'll be looking forward to it. I just didn't know when that is because in the next week or so, Alex Ferrario celebrating a birthday.
How about
so
that?
I didn't know if we were going to be able to have a chance to say, happy birthday beforehand or afterhand, but I wanted to, make sure that
realize my birthday was next week.
How would you know with all that's going on?
Well, that's true. I don't
You
even.
poor dude,
I don't
man.
even know
I
what
like the
life
fact
is
he
right
doesn't
now.
know the English listener's name, but he knows
He knows my birthday.
birthday's
Hey,
coming.
I appreciate about that.
Well, you know what happened? No. So this morning I saw it on the board in the break room.
Oh.
And I was like, okay. And at first I thought it said 22nd.
Did
and
we
I was
miss
like,
it?
Oh God, we missed it. And then I went back when I left the podcast. We were waiting on Jeremy.
Okay.
That was one of the things that I
look at
did
me
to see
go.
what date that it
Oh, he
was.
drops. We're waiting on Jeremy.
But also too, the sad face that he just made when he said, "I didn't even realize my
did.
birthday was next
That
week."
was sad.
That is a dad that is overwhelmed right now. Everybody.
defeated.
Well, typically, in years past with Katie and I, it's been like, hey, what do you want to do for your birthday? 2 weeks in advance. And now I think it's going to be her and I'm going to go home today and be like, do you know my birthday's next week? Like, yeah, we should probably think of something.
Dude, I get a 20 spot if you go home tonight and get ready to leave, and she goes, "Where are you going?" You go, "Get a pedicure." I just want to go relax, get a massage.
I just want that.
She might kill me.
Dude, I wouldn't blame her at all.
We cut the nap out from our oldest, and so she doesn't get to nap anymore, and so she might murder me if I say that. Gonna go get one of those floats.
Dudes, you know what's going to be a great day for you is the day that all three of your kids
Go to
are
school?
in school at the same time.
Yeah.
I thought it was gonna be move out.
That's true too, but that's a while away.
See, I got a mixed bag on that, man. I got my oldest is out, and I would, there are times where I really genuinely miss having that dude around.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. I love it. My problem is from 5 o'clock until 8 o'clock. 5 o'clock until 8 o'clock is like going to Costco on a Sunday. Yeah. It's hell on earth.
Because you got bath, you got
Dinner,
dinner.
bath, bedtime. It's just a lot. I love everything up until that. Now, am I home from 9 until 2 o'clock? No, I'm not, but it's part of the reason why I love it so much. Mornings are great. 2 to 4 o'clock is great, but then once 5 o'clock hits, it's like that dong, dong, like it's hell.
Yeah.
It is hell.
See, my thing is, I got the laptop out. Even if I go bury myself in the office, and I'm like, okay, he's got 2 years. Has he got 2 years left on that contract, or one? Let me look at it. Okay, he's got one more year at 3.6. Daddy, my batting glove has a hole in it. Do you think we could go up to Dick's and get a new batting glove? Not right now, buddy. I'm trying to figure out this story.
Is it 3.2 or 3.7, Eli?
So we just got my daughter, new school stuff, or new school clothes, like last weekend before. And so last night, doing the dishes, hey, Dad, I need to go and get some shorts this weekend. What did we do the couple weekends ago? What is,
I was the king of that in grade school. I'd be like, hey, Mom, I got a presentation I got to do tomorrow. I need poster now.
Poster board.
8 o'clock at night, going to Walmart and be like, oh, yeah, sorry, Mom. Forgot.
And they were so pissed.
Oh.
Like, oh, man, it just
Like that, he would do that passive-aggressive thing, too, when you'd come home and be like, hey, how was your poster board presentation? Sorry, Dad. Jeez. Wanting to get an A.
As he's saving up for season tickets because his son can't get him any.
Because his son can't get him into the hockey game.
All right, well, we will do this again whenever we decide to do this
We'll
again,
be
ladies
back.
and gentlemen. It is the Last Minute Blues podcast, as always.
Birthday to you.
Thinking about our homeboy, Jeff
Sing it
Burton.
like Marilyn
A
Monroe.
happy early birthday to our friend Alex Ferrario. For Jeremy Rutherford, I'm Donnie Fandango. It's the Last Minute Blues podcast. As always, let's go Blues!